Welcome to a special live episode of the Escape Collective podcast. We are coming to you about 15 minutes, 20 minutes after stage 18 just wrapped up, where it seems that Jumbo-Visma has finally made a few rather important decisions. One might say common sense has prevailed. I am Caley Fretz. Joining me today, Jonny Long, Abby Mickey, and Dane Cash. This show is also happening with a live studio audience of Escape Collective members. Thank you to all of our members currently hanging out with us in Discord. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A later with everybody. But first, we're going to talk about what happened today. So I'm just going to throw to you guys for reactions. Abby, let's start with you. What do you think? What just happened?
I may have shed a tear because it seems like Sepp Kuss might win this Vuelta, but I feel like Vinigo maybe checked his Twitter last night, or he was telling the truth all along about how he wants Sepp to win, because I think it was pretty clear out there that he was all in for Sepp, and there's a chance that he might have sat up in the end there just to give Sepp a little bit of extra time, more than 8 seconds going into the rest of the race. But I think that
I would say almost 100%.
Yes.
That is what happened.
110% perhaps. But I think it was nice to see both this morning Sepp having a bit of confidence in himself, and his smile crossing the line said a lot about how things went today versus how things went yesterday.
Agreed. Dane, what do you think? You haven't had a chance to weigh in yet.
I think a couple things. I think, first of all, Abby has been on Pretty Serious a couple times recently. I think she's shed a tear in all of her recent appearances on Pretty Serious, and she's shedding another one today, which, like, how many tears do you have left?
Look, I'm a crier, okay? Like, what do you expect?
It must be tough, because it's just a lot of, like Van Vleuten retiring. Okay, anyway, I think that we don't know whether Jonas Vingegaard let Sepp get time today, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think on the Tourmalet, Sepp showed he's actually strong as heck. And I'm not entirely certain that Jonas just decided to back off today.
Wow.
I think he rode for Kuss on that climb. But I think at the very end, I think Sepp Kuss gapped him.
I think that's...
We'll never know.
Optimistic. Jonny, what do you think?
It's tricky because now that it's over, it's kind of like you already miss when it was just like crazy. And everything was kicking off, and it was kind of stuff we'd never seen before. So while there was a part of you that, like, well, part of me and I guess other people that were like, okay, thank goodness this whole like charade is over. There were like a couple times when like Roglic and Vingegaard came back round. I think it was after the Ayuso attack, and they started coming around the side, and you're like, are they coming around the side just to like take the front again and calm things down, or are they gonna launch again? And I really enjoyed the comments in the live channel on Discord where some people were like, would you rather have this, guys? Do you want it to just have been this for 4 days? But I'm glad that now
it would have been boring.
Yeah, it would have been. But I'm glad it's done now. And I've forgotten what I was going to say. Usually it doesn't matter, but there's people watching.
Well, let's get into some of the things that were said prior to today's stage, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that we think happened yesterday. So, if you've already read everything that's up on the site on Escape Collective this morning, then you saw the story that actually Jonny posted at about 3:00 in the morning my time, but we wrapped it up last night with some reporting from sort of inside the hotel at Jumbo-Visma. I can't say like where those who those sources are, but they were, like I said, at the hotel. They are sort of inside the team, and the gist of those conversations was very much like it was like yesterday a very awkward place to be. Walking on eggshells, walking a tightrope, whatever sort of phrase you want to use there. There was certainly an acknowledgement internally that they'd screwed up from a PR perspective at the very least. I think you can argue the sort of the athletic side, the sporting side, forever basically, but they were very aware of the PR problem. And what we were hearing is that there was some sort of emergency meeting called. Ard, the press officer at Jumbo, says that they just have meetings every night, and so that may have been slightly overblown in sort of the rumor mill. But there were discussions that were had, And the end result of those, I think, was one, the things that we got out of both Jonas Vingegaard and Sepp Kuss this morning, the quotes that we got out of them this morning, and two, what we saw on the road today. So let's start with the Vingegaard quote, which I think is interesting. This is from an interview in, I think it was Danish television. I think it was on, yes, Danish television. This is been translated for us. None of the four of us speak any Danish. And the sort of important bits are Jonas Vingegaard reiterating the fact that he would like to see Sepp Kuss win. He says, of course, we've talked about it. As I said yesterday, I would like to see Sepp win. The interviewer then asks, was it a mistake that you didn't stay with him? And Jonas responds, both and. I was also in doubt about what to do in this situation. There wasn't anyone who told me what to do then and there. So I also had my doubts about what to do. Let's break that up a little bit. Let's talk about that. We heard yesterday that the director's car didn't really have any radio contact. The radios weren't working particularly well. They couldn't see anything on the TVs. Does that put the little sort of like questioning look behind into some additional context for you all?
I don't believe them when they say that they didn't know what was going on, first of all. It's not that hard to see what's happening. Like even in the mist, you could see, like, hey, Kuss is getting dropped. Like that's not that hard to see. So first of all, I don't believe that. But I do think Jonas was probably not told what to do. I think this is a failure of management and a failure of sports directing. And Jonny and Caley have said this in various ways. The way that it was sort of a non-decision, what they did, the approach to the last two stages, and that to me falls pretty squarely on the team directing.
As Dr. Toolride has just pointed out in the comments, it can't all be put on the sports directors, even though they've kind of just abdicated doing their job. Like Jonas Vingegaard can make his own mind up. Like he decided to attack the other days, and he could have then decided to wait and not follow Roglic. But in that split second decision, he made his choice. And even with the look behind and stuff like that, you could see he was kind of mulling it over and being like, should I be doing this? And then he kind of just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to figure it out later. So like I get, like definitely the sports directors should have been more on it. And I can't believe that a team that's successful and experienced kind of just let all this happen. And it all kind of crept up on itself. But I think Vingegaard and Roglic still, they can't just be blameless, you know?
I feel like what's happening here is that Vingegaard, a young and relatively unexperienced rider compared to Roglic, for example, feels like he's kind of racing Roglic in a way. Like Roglic has been obviously, and maybe I'm repeating you guys from yesterday because I haven't had time to listen to your emergency podcast, but Roglic has been pretty clear that he wants to go for the Tour again, and Vingegaard obviously wants to go for the Tour again, and they don't want to go in with co-leadership. So yesterday, or stage 17, I feel like the two of them were racing each other, and when Jonas reacted, he reacted to Roglic, and he was thinking, I need to beat Roglic in the overall. He wasn't thinking about Sepp, which is a bummer, and I think rightfully should be kind of judged, or the anger is well placed there. But I also think that the problem here is that Roglic and Vingegaard were racing each other yesterday, and Sepp is collateral damage in that. So I feel like the look behind, and also Vingegaard's statements after the stage 17 and after the stage today, stage 18, he was pretty clear that, or before the stage, he wants Sepp to win the Vuelta, but he also doesn't want to jeopardize his place in the team as a leader when it comes to the Tour next year or Grand Tours of the future. So he's being the cutthroat killer he needs to be in order to be a GC leader. That doesn't mean he wants to race Sepp. He didn't mean to gain time when he attacked on stage 16. That was the rest of the peloton not following his attack. Like, he wanted to win the stage. He didn't want to take the jersey from Sepp. That was not his goal. And so I feel like, for me, a lot of the hate towards Jonas has been, I think, misplaced. Like, I don't understand why there's not more hate towards Roglic, because to me he seems like he's the one who has more experience, has needed Sepp more in the past. Vingegaard didn't need Sepp at the Tour. He was a great guy to help, but like he won by 7 minutes. He didn't need Sepp. Roglic owes his Giro win to Sepp. Like this 100%. I feel like that is something that I'm not seeing so much on the shit storm that is the internet, and it's making me upset.
Well, now I got to mark this podcast as explicit, Abby. Come on.
Sorry.
The one thing that I would question is that Tourmalet stage, and like whether I don't think we know whether he intended to take that much time or not. I think that's an impossible thing to know. What I would 100% agree with, and what all of our reporting suggests, like everything you just said, Abby, is completely backed up by what people within the team are saying, right? Like that's their evaluation of this thing, which is that there's this sort of leadership question within the team. Although I don't think there really is. That's part of the stupid thing here, right? Like maybe Roglic hopes there is, but there isn't, right? Like we already know who's going to lead the team at next year's Tour de France.
Why do you think he's trying to go to another team? Like he's trying to get his contract bought out by Trek for a reason, because he knows he's not going to be the leader if Vingegaard is on the team with him.
100%. And so I think that you're 100% right in that Sepp was essentially caught in the middle of this tug of war between two much more accomplished riders. And then we end up here, and then to sort of return to the kind of director, or was this a director's fault or the rider's fault kind of question, that's what for me kind of puts it back on the shoulders of management and the directors, because like that question, you could essentially say that leadership question is the origin of all of this. And if they just sat them down a week ago and said, cut it out, this is the pecking order, I don't think we would have had any of this drama. But maybe they're probably also worried about losing Roglic, and maybe saying that out loud was something they didn't want to do.
Well, yeah, while we're bringing up the Tourmalet, and I wasn't really sure when to slot this into the conversation, but I think now's a good time, particularly with talking about the leadership discussion. Another shout out to Dr. Tallrider for a comment he made in a story the other day, and I know he's in this chat, so Dr. Tallrider, nice. The Tourmalet stage is the real, for me, that's the real problem, because the whole, we're just going to decide it on the road, Kuss versus Vingegaard, and I guess Roglic as well, but it's really Kuss versus Vingegaard for red right now. That mentality, it's not like they were following that the whole time. They didn't follow Jonas Vingegaard on the Tourmalet. And if you watch it, I went back and watched the stage, by the way, before I say any of this, so I don't sound like an idiot. I made sure this is true. When Kuss actually decided to go, he waited until the very end of that stage so he didn't drag anyone with him, because he was following the unwritten rules that you don't chase your own teammate. You don't drag rivals up to a teammate. He followed the unwritten rules. When he actually did go, Kuss had like a impressive turn of speed and closed down a lot of that gap to Vingegaard. And so Vingegaard ends up taking 30 seconds on that stage, and I don't know that he would have taken 30 seconds on that stage. I think Kuss looked really strong on that stage, but Kuss followed the unwritten rules. You don't chase your teammate. And then like 3 days later, the team decides, actually, you know what? We're just going to screw the unwritten rules. We're going to attack Sepp Kuss even though he's in the red jersey. And that, to me, that's a failure of management. That's them. They should have had that decided beforehand, whether they're actually going to race each other or not.
I think that Sepp, as a domestique and just a great guy in general, Sepp is more likely to follow the unwritten rules, because that's how domestiques are in general. Like, if you meet a domestique on the street, they're more willing to give you their shirt. The reason that Roglic and Vingegaard have gotten to where they are is because they are cutthroat. Like, Jonas seems like a very nice guy, but you have to be like a little bit mentally unhinged to be able to win a race like the Tour de France by 7 minutes. They are not like I'm sure they're perfectly nice guys, but they don't follow the unwritten rules of cycling, and that's how they win Grand Tours. Sepp is in this really unique position where he follows the unwritten rules, but he managed to get himself into the red jersey, and I think he doesn't really know what to do with that. Like, I think he's surprised by where he is right now, so he's not about to break how he's always been as a domestique, as a great guy who enjoys working for other people. he's not about to change who he is at his core because he happens to be in the lead of a race. If he ends up not winning this thing, then that would impact his role in the future. If he does win this thing, it completely changes everything for him. But say he loses the red jersey and he broke the unwritten rules of cycling, then he's in a little bit of a hard spot. Now it's like the tables have turned a bit because he's going to come out of this thing, hopefully, fingers crossed, the winner of the Vuelta. Poor Jumbo has to figure out how to redo his contract because now he's a Grand Tour winner and they owe him a lot more money than he's probably currently making. And I think it's a really hard situation for everyone involved.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about why Roglic hasn't picked up more flack, I think it comes down to that we don't yet see Vingegaard as a sympathetic character because he's been invincible thus far, like after he won his first tour. Like we've had that with Roglic, and we had, like, remember how Pogacar was viewed before Vingegaard cracked him? Like he was viewed in the same way. And so I think that's what it comes down to, is that Roglic is kind of sneaking through because it's like he's had his own like pitfalls and things go wrong. And I think that it's probably a hangover from the Tour and like the reaction from the Tour that's bled into the Vuelta, and that's maybe why. It's not fair, I don't think, but I think that's maybe part of the explanation. I don't know.
I guess the reason I don't understand is because of the post-race interviews after stage 17. It was like the post-race interview from Vingegaard, whether he's being honest or not, like we don't know if he's lying, but what he's giving us is, I want Sepp to win this Vuelta. And what Roglic is giving us is, I'm here to race. Smiling like the Joker from Batman. He's like, I'm here to race. I keep telling Sepp, just live your dream. Like, no, I'm not. If you're just going off of how they raced their bikes, what they were doing in the race, Vingegaard never once pulled with Roglic or worked with Roglic on stage 17 to gain any time on Sepp. I just feel like, I don't know. We don't know much about Jonas, but I think that what they've said on camera, people should be maybe reading into that a little bit more than they are on the internet.
Okay, I want to pivot a little bit here to what Sepp said this morning, because he he kind of like finally came out and just said it, right? He kind of just came out and said, well, I'll read it to you all. This popped up. I actually missed this because I was asleep. This is on the Cycling News Twitter, so thanks to the CN crew for grabbing it. I am in this position because I deserve it, the American told television before the rolled out. I deserve the support of the team. I am not someone who demands a lot, but I have learned that you have to stand up for yourself every now and then. So this is the first time we've seen him kind of do this. I mean, yesterday he said, I like my shot, but then he immediately pivoted back to, but also I work for these guys and I like doing that. And then this morning he really turned it around and he staked his claim. And I think one of the big questions is, did something happen internally last night so he felt like he could do this, right? I have to imagine that there was this sit down last night that happened. I don't know if the riders themselves were in it or if it was just among directors and then it was passed down. I don't know the details of it, but it certainly sounds to me like someone went to Sepp and said, you are officially the leader and you can start talking like it, because that's what we got this morning.
Yeah, I'm desperate to know the percentage of how much of it was sort of management and press officers and the like being like, guys, we need to sort this out because it's too much now, and how much of it came from Sepp being like, actually today what happened was not cool. And like, if he finally stuck up for himself, that's the final sort of thing of this whole story that I'm desperate to know. But we won't. But I'd love it if we did.
Well, we'll try.
I think
Go ahead,
that
Abby.
the reason that management hasn't, before maybe last night, made it clear who they're working for is because they never expected Sepp to still be in the red jersey after Angry Lou. Angry Lou? Fuck. It's in my head now.
Angry
I like
Lou.
Angry Lou.
Angry Lou is the Bob Roll version, which I don't mind, actually.
I think that, I think the reason that management and the DSs weren't like, okay, we're riding for Sepp now, is because they fully expected them to get to stage 17 and for Sepp to blow up. Whether he was on the wheel or out of the wind or not, I think they expected him to not be able to hang on with those two. And he couldn't in the end, but it wasn't by enough to justify them riding away. So I think after he was able to minimize that gap on stage 17, that's when they were like, oh, okay, he actually can win this thing. We're not like, and it's dumb because even if like they had nothing to lose, but I do think that was part of why maybe the riders didn't have a clear answer from management about who the leader actually
I think that is accurate. I think they probably didn't. Nope. I don't think many people expected Sepp Kuss to be here. And I think we kind of all expected Roglic and Vingegaard to be fighting for the win. So it's really not that much of a surprise that there's 2 Jumbo riders on the podium. It's the Sepp factor that's the surprise. The problem with this is, though, I think to me it still is a failure because if you listen to the Pretty Serious Bike Racing podcast several days ago, we pointed out that there is no reason for Sepp to be dropped unless it is his own teammates. He's that far ahead. He doesn't just drop in a vacuum. It's not like, oh, Sepp might drop. No, it's because you are dropping him. It's not like Bahrain is setting a hard pace that's going to drop Sepp. It's literally Primož Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard dropping him. So they should have seen this coming because they are the ones setting the pace. They don't have to set the pace. If they do, it's on them. And so I think, again, it kind of comes back to this. This is on them for poor planning.
All right, I think we've gone around with us enough here. We should open up the floor to questions. Drop them in over in the little chat over here. Many people are typing. Take like a 30-second break to get some questions in here, or maybe I'll just answer them as they pop up. Several people are typing.
When that happens in either our like internal Slack or the Discord, it's just sort of like that's when you know things are really kicking off in like whatever race you're watching. But who would have thought this is where we'd be at on stage? Is it stage 18 of the Vuelta? Yeah, stage 18.
While we're giving some time here, I want to point out, Jonny and I have talked about it a little bit in our Slack, how I think, and this might be true, Caley, Abby, we would kind of love to see Jonas versus Roglic if they were aware of the stakes and bought into the idea of best man wins. That would be fun. That's fun. And I've said on the Pretty Serious podcast that I would love to see teammates sprinting for a win if it's just 2 guys off the front and they're on the same team, if they're both buying into this mentality of best rider wins. That's fun. And we've all had, I think it's been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we got some questions. Mike Marino, what are the odds of a Roglic Trek marriage? I mean, so when we first wrote that story ahead of the Vuelta, just to reiterate, because Jumbo pushed back on it quite hard, just to reiterate, like, I'm 100% sure that Trek approached him. The sourcing is about as strong as it's possible to be.
Jumbo have to push back. Like, they're never going to say, oh yeah, they have to put back. Yeah, they have to. So just to get that out of the way, that doesn't mean it was ever going to be particularly likely. I do feel like this race has made it more likely, because if you're Roglic and you got essentially like pulled to heel today, right? That's essentially what Jumbo management was trying to avoid by leaving this whole thing to, race it on the road. And by having to say that out loud to Roglic, I think that the chances of him leaving are higher. He does have 2 years left in his contract. Ineos is apparently sniffing around as well. It all depends on, I think, how management comes out of this week. What do you guys think in terms of like chances?
I would be shocked to see him go to Trek after this. I feel like they're a team that really values team, and his actions and his statements have made it pretty clear that he only thinks about one thing. And I think that while they've signed Teo, there's 3 Grand Tours in a year. So it wouldn't be the worst decision to pick up another GC rider, but I also think that they probably are more interested in Sepp at this point.
Well, I did text a contact over there and told him to free the eagle, and he sent back a laugh cry emoji. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen.
I think that they'll manage to patch things up, at least from a Jumbo-Visma perspective, because I think they do want to go into the Tour with both Vingegaard and Roglic, because I think that was so effective in years past, and especially if they're going into a Tour next year where Pogačar isn't coming back from a crash and has like an illness during the race and whatnot. Because you also don't know what happens. Like if Vingegaard crashes in the first week. Then you've got Roglic there, so that having that two-pronged attack has worked in the past. And I think they're better to patch it up. You hope, or if not, Ineos. I think Ineos maybe could be a possibility.
I think, despite what we've seen the past week, this team has generally done a really nice job of managing all the egos. I mean, Christophe Laporte and Wout van Aert's a great example of this. So I would be surprised if Roglic went right away into what would be another leadership fight. I know that Theo Gegenhardt doesn't have the credentials of Jonas Vingegaard, but I'm pretty sure he wants to race the Tour de France. So there's just going to be more internal strife, no matter where I think that's probably true no matter where he goes, if it's to a good team. He could go to a bad team that doesn't have a rider of his caliber, but I don't think he wants to do that either.
That's basically every team except for Jumbo, though. So, and UAE. So, it does have a lot of options at the moment. Klaus asks, if Roglic does go to a new team, is he being paid as someone likely to win the Tour, as someone who has once won the Vuelta? Which is a nuanced question. But those are two very different things.
I think he's still paid well. He's won so many races this year. I think just winning those World Tour races already bumps your salary up. And he could win the Tour. I don't know. It feels like something after all this, like you'd never think this would happen this week. So now the idea of Roglic winning a Tour, even after everyone sort of said his time's passed, I could see it happening. So why not pay him kind of like that? It's worth the risk, right? How many other guys can race with Vingegaard?
Yeah, I mean, I see Roglic as somebody worthy of getting Tour contender money. I mean, yes, obviously Vingegaard is the favorite to win the Tour de France, but if you're not paying Roglic Tour contender money, then you're literally paying nobody other than Vingegaard Tour contender money. So I think Roglic is in that conversation. Mm-hmm. Also, he's not a once Vuelta winner; he's a thrice Vuelta winner. So give the guy a little more credit.
Duck called Dan H. That one took me a second to read through. As I would love to hear what the other team's press officers say in private about the Jumbo-Visma drama. I mean, I've been in touch with a couple different folks over the last couple days, and I would say the general gist is LOL, and glad it's not happening to me. That's basically that's the gist of that.
I was just going to say, I think often when you're in their presence and you like ask them a question like that when something's going on, you don't necessarily get an answer because they're still like being professional, but you get like a wide grin. But they're all kind of friends, but you can still like slightly revel in the confusion and pandemonium on other people's plates.
Yep. What else we got here? If you guys can open up questions too if you want to grab any.
I like how many of them are about like contracts and stuff, and I guess some of you guys have like more info on that, but it's like such a murky world that it's quite hard to like the leverage comes from it all being a bit weird.
We can sort of do additional reporting on that, but I don't know the details of these riders' contracts sort of ahead of sort of at will here. My guess is a rider like Sepp probably doesn't have as much of an incentive heavy contract because or his incentives are quite different. I mean, who knows? Sepp could get a bonus when a teammate wins the Tour de France. Like it could be very different. That would be unusual, I should say. But he's not hired as a leader, so it's going to
be a huge bummer if like he really needed cash and he decided, well, I'm going to let someone else win for that.
I think
for that bonus. I'm going to gift someone else a win for that bonus.
I would assume that he has bonuses written into his contract for winning something like this, regardless of what his role is on the team. I think all of them have a bonus written into their contract for a win at a monument, a stage of a Grand Tour. Like some of them have a bonus written in for literally any win ever. It could be like a criterium. They still have a bonus written in for that. So yeah, national championships, but it just is the amount that they get based on it. So I think that they would have written into Sepp's contract if he wins a Grand Tour XYZ bonus. Never once probably imagining that they would actually have to pay it out.
Yep.
There's a good question which I'd like to take first before handing over. Scott asked, could the Jumbo press office have stuffed this any worse? I don't think they actually have. I think they've been like given a hospital pass of a situation that then they have to bear the brunt of. But they've done two things very well. Number one, they've just posted through it. like just entered a completely different reality, which is what you kind of have to do as like a press officer, is that you just have to create this other reality and hope that other people like join you on that ship. And then secondly, they've been on it in terms of communicating, I feel, and even if they haven't been able to like control their riders, I think it's quite hard to when you've got like real superstar riders to like kind of tell them what to do. So I think they've kind of done all right. I think it's the management which is more comes out of this a bit bruised. I think press officers are probably like, you know what, actually this could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and they continue to do things like respond to us in a professional manner, and like that's kind of all they can do, right? It's like answer the questions in a way that in a way that doesn't make things any worse.
With how quickly they were responding to our questions about various mystery bottles, like whatever it is. Not even just this particular incident. It's like anything. They're really quick to get back on in the middle of this race.
That's been an improvement in past years. I think at the start of this year they made a concerted effort to improve sort of relations with maybe English-speaking media.
Eric asked a completely sort of separate question, which is any chance Remco could still snag the green jersey if they can flick Groves in a crosswind tomorrow? There is, I believe, mathematically a chance.
Yeah, there is, and I hope he does. Because I believe, not because I'm rooting against Caden Groves, but I believe Remco's stage hunting abilities are what the points jersey's made for. Caley and I have talked about this ad nauseum in the past. I want Remco to win the points jersey because I don't think the points jersey should just be gifted to the sprinters. You got to go earn it. And Remco is earning it every day. So I would love to see him win the points jersey. And yeah, he earned it.
I think Dane's insane.
It's mad how Remco's sort of like solo side quest is kind of just being overrun by the whole Jumbo thing. Because usually Remco just dominates every sort of narrative and every race he's at. And while he's been out doing like crazy things, it's kind of just been like, oh yeah, like he's going to do that and he'll do that. And then after that's happened, this crazy thing, we actually get the real crazy thing that's happening. So I hope there's some more sort of writing and sort of conversation about what Remco's done as well in the last few days.
We got an inside baseball question. I don't know if we want to spend time on this podcast on that. Well, since it's all members hanging out with us in this Discord, I'll answer it. So Jesse asks, inside baseball question, how does site traffic, new membership, and Discord activity during the Vuelta compare to the Tour? How does that change the commitment of editorial resources in the future? Well, if I could be guaranteed that one team is going to create sort of an insane intra-team battle with itself every year at the Vuelta, I think we'd put a lot of resources into the Vuelta. But the difference between last week and this week, I'll tell you, was quite large. And even the last 48 hours in terms of like member signups, for example, and we don't sort of release the full numbers of these publicly, but I can tell you that the signups of the last 2 days have been roughly in line with some of the worst days of the Tour de France. They were good. They were actually excellent, but they're in line with the worst days of the Tour de France. So we're still talking about a totally different, the Tour is it's literally 10x what anything else, including the Vuelta. So yeah, we're going to cover the Vuelta when interesting things happen. That's sort of our MO. We don't try to make interesting things out of nothing. So when it's interesting like this week, then we chuck everybody at it. I mean, you all have seen the site for the last week. But I'm not going to stand here and promise you that the Vuelta is going to be interesting next year. In this way, I should say.
Unless Vingegaard and Roglic are both there, then maybe we'll go.
Unless they might be, because the Vuelta does get a good start list every year, as I tell Caley every August.
Yeah. You don't have to convince me, Dane. You need to convince all the people.
No, I'm actually I'm on the Let's Cover NCL more train. That's my. Yeah, that's where I am.
Dane, I've been enjoying the victory laps ever since like it all kicked off this week. Just
every chance I get.
Every 12 hours. Yep. Every 12 hours, like Vuelta's great, isn't it, guys?
Salty Dave has a great question. It's actually a two-part question. The first part is for me, but we're going to start with the second part for you, Johnny. Is G, Geraint Thomas, a bloke, a chap, or a lad?
He's not a lad. Luke Rowe is a lad. I would say Connor Swift is a chap, and I would say that Geraint Thomas is a bloke.
And then for us Americans, is Sepp a dude, a bro, or a guy?
I don't know that he's a bro.
None of the above.
He's
Maybe
cooler than a
you.
guy, but I
What
don't
is
think
he?
he's a dude or a bro.
Yeah. He's definitely
He's not
not a
bro.
bro.
Yeah.
He's maybe a
Okay,
bit
so
of a
what is
dude.
he?
Can you define them?
Is he a buddy?
Yeah, buddy.
Is he a buddy? No, you
No, you
can
can't
be a buddy.
Can he be a chap?
Or
Can
bud.
he be a chap? I mean,
Sport?
I know that we're pulling from across the pond here.
Yeah.
Champ?
We'll give him 4 days.
No, Champ's also a bit
Wait,
double
Johnny.
victory, isn't it?
Can you? What's Caley and Dane?
Ooh, I like that.
Chap, a lad, or a what's
Float.
the other one?
Wait, you want me to
Dude, bro, or
define-
guy?
Any of the
This is
six.
getting deep now.
Any of the six.
Any of the six? I would say they are. I would say that they're a mix of chaps and guys.
I'll take that.
Okay. Wait, is lad like an insult then?
A bit. It depends.
This
It's
has
a
to be
fine line. It's like
Salty
a fine
Dave is
line.
saying this has to be on the Placeholders podcast. I think this might need to be an ongoing segment actually on the
Yeah.
Placeholders podcast. We have a lot. So a lot of our members have a lot of
What are the feminine
opinions
versions
about
of
this.
the questions?
Yeah, I think you have to define men like this because they're just like men are bad at like expressing themselves or like deciding for themselves who they are. So it's all subliminal. So you just end up being like a guy or a chap.
Wriggles says Sepp is a gent.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
I'm saying buddy or gent, and we are 40 minutes into this podcast.
Just now, yeah.
Do we have any more
Into
serious
it.
questions we can finish up on, or should we just finish up on this, which feels right and proper?
I like how the chat now I'm scrolling down and all I'm seeing is people saying either dude, buddy, or like pal.
It's great. Great question, Salty Dave.
The question to wrap it up should be like, do we think that Sepp is going to win this race?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Unless Ayuso does something, I think
Grows wings.
the Jumbos have been, the Jumbos have been brought in line. So I think
If
that
Kuss
it's almost
crashes,
guaranteed
do we
at this
think
point.
that the Jumbos would go back and wait for him?
Yeah.
Or will
yeah.
Jonas accidentally
Maybe
win
not
this?
Vingegaard.
How loudly were they yelled at? Is the
Right, that's what
is
I
the
wonder.
question.
Although I actually
Well, I
think
think in that case, there's a lot of other domestiques on the team that are all in for Sepp, and one of their own is currently leading a Grand Tour. They're gonna work for Sepp no matter what. The question is the other two guys, but the rest of them are 100% for Sepp.
wouldn't it be cool if there was like an intra-team domestique versus domestique battle? Like some of them sided with Jonas, and some of them sided with Sepp Kuss, and then it's a subset of the team versus subset of the team. That'd be pretty fun.
I like to imagine that they like the domestiques have all like unionized and they're like sending their terms to the GC leaders.
All right, well, I'm cutting it off. This has gone on plenty long. Thank you to all of our members for joining us today. We appreciate you and your questions and your comments. And you're just hilarious sometimes. Love it. If you're not a member already, head over to escapecollective.com/join. Join us in here in the private Discord. And we'll be back next week, probably, unless there's an emergency between now and then, with Wheel Talk, Geek Warning, Placeholders, and Pretty Serious Bike Racing. All coming at you next week. Thanks for listening.